Howdy friends, Bernardo Español from Nardio.net, and this is a different video than the usual ones I put out for you guys. This is more of a slice of life and get to know me a little bit, so it's gonna be a little personal. If you're not in the mood for that, you just want to stick with other sorts of things that I put out, that's fine. But today I want to talk to you about what I hold on to physically. This isn't emotional baggage too much, but I'm also curious about what you hold on to. Now, growing up, I don't actually have too many things from my childhood. I moved around a lot, and I had some problematic parents where I just couldn't really have too many physical items. And one of the few things I was able to indulge in what later on were books and a little bit comic books. And that was great for me because I needed the escapism. I was raised by two drug addicts on and off, and I wasn't really able to keep many toys, electronics, or anything else like that because they would sell them. I couldn't save up any money because they would dig through my stuff, steal it, and then get drugs. So it was really frustrating as a kid. And it wasn't a great childhood, but a little while, one time I lived in this small apartment in Harlem, and the lady upstairs, her ex-husband, left her with a whole bunch of debt and boxes upon boxes upon boxes of comic books. And when I moved to that hellhole of an apartment, I befriended the family upstairs, and she would just let me read. And this was my introduction into comic books. And it was amazing because it was pure escapism during one of the most stressful times in my life. So I would just spend hours going through X-Men books, X-Men novels, Spider-Man books, Spider-Man novels. And it was so great. And this is also after, when I was in school, I was also just chain reading as many books as I can. Thankfully, I came upon a teacher who really, loved that I loved reading. And she would give me like 2 or 3 books a day for me to read. And she thought this would take me a week, and I would give them back the next day and I read them. Then I would give her, she'd like ask me questions, and I would be able to, give her like verbal reports over everything the book had. I just wanted to as kids do this too. Some kids love reading, and that was me. But really, I just didn't want to dwell with what I was stuck living with, where I was living. It's like I think the apartment had several holes in the floor, several holes in the wall. Like if you went to the bathroom at night, you could actually fall into a hole in the floor. There were rats everywhere. It was not a fun place. So comic books and books were my escape. Fast forward a few years, and I found comic books I could buy. And this is back when they were still like 75 cents, $1, if that. And I just, whatever spare change I could get and I could hide from my family, my dad, I would just go and buy some, and every once in a while when he was feeling generous, he'd give me some spare change and I'd go buy some comic books. And the interesting thing is, it's the one thing Dad didn't steal or couldn't steal, because for some reason, thankfully, in the Bronx, comic books were trash. Dad and his friends would go out and rob a bunch of people's houses, and they'd come back with things. And one thing they would come back with pretty often, because what didn't sell were comic books. And a bunch of friends of theirs were thieves and all these things, and they'd go to people's houses and rob them and stuff. And it's just like they'd come back with comic books. So he would just bring all this junk back to me that would shut me up, keep me quiet, and I would just be like enamored with this like world I could throw myself into. And it was great. And the best part is he couldn't take them back to resell them. Now, this guy stole like 3 or 4 of my bikes to sell. The guy stole a few of my electronics and game systems. It was frustrating being a kid. And like, my bike's missing again. What happened? Oh. But at least my comics and my cards I had. And then back then, at least, for the most part, comics were good, not the crap that they started doing now. And one of the things I used to like doing over the years, I went to school in a little part of the Bronx, Little Italy, but it was already turning more Puerto Rican Dominican by that point, but it was still called Little Italy. And it was a little candy shop that sold comic book cards and a few other things. And in the morning, I think I was able to pay like 25 cents a pack and get Spider-Man comic cards. And I got a few other sorts of things. I got various baseball cards here and there and some other things. And thankfully, again, it was something that I was able to hold on to and not get stolen. And it was just fun for me because as far as the sports stuff goes, I was actually never into sports. Like baseball bores me, basketball, football is okay, but never really does it for me. But something about the collecting them and looking at them and getting all the foils was fun. Excuse me. But it was the Marvel cards that really did it for me because I was a Marvel fan. Got a little bit of DC, but really Marvel fan because they had the really cool cards back then. And my favorite set was 1992 30th anniversary Spider-Man card set. I loved it so much. And over time, when I was in this little junior high school, I got most of the set, and over the when I think I got pretty much all of them that I could. And I got a little binder, some IBM binder. I don't know where we got that from. And what I liked about these cards is it wasn't like what you saw in someone where they had some of the cards you would see out there where they had power ratings and just like pointless like scale things. It was just like little bits of stories, little bits of the Spider-Man mythos and history and big events in his life and all that. And as a fan of the comics, some of these I read, some of these I didn't read. So this was a way for me to kind of fill in the gaps of what I knew. And it was great. And back then, at least for me, the art was amazing. It's for the most part followed one style, but there were a few that were just really divergent from that. A lot of these I think were classic covers that were redone. And I was enthralled with this. And I collected almost all of them. I was actually just missing 2 cards from my entire collection. That always kind of bothered me throughout the years, but I never thought much of it. Like, I've never been much of a completionist. I still always wanted to fill this book. There were also some Chase foil cards that came with this set, but I never saw them in person. And when I looked for them later on, they were ludicrously priced, and they weren't that impressive. And something about the Chase cards, I don't really feel like I need to add them to the collection. I don't think they added anything. And again, I looked for the prices for them recently just to see if I could. I'm like, oh, I can't justify that. So anyway, a little while ago, actually no. So I held on to these for a while, like all my comic books that I could, my comic cards, my baseball cards, and as I grew up, I still had them for a while until I moved into this apartment, this tiny apartment that I'm living in. And there's no space. There really is no space. And I tried to keep them all on either a bookshelf that I have that eats up half the hallway and on top of my closet. But after a bit, I'm like, you know what? Let's try to part with some stuff. And 2 things happened. One, I was working in this office at this terrific place called Hazen and Sawyer. And I knew the guy, one of my bosses, was a scout troop leader. So I grabbed all my baseball, basketball, football cards. I put them in a bag. And I just went to work one day and said, hey, Ed, here, give this to the kids. Because my thing is, I'd never really wanted to sell these things. I kind of always found the idea of selling these things for profit, flipping, as it were, holding on to these and selling later, distasteful. Very, very distasteful. For me, and you can call me idyllic, you call me whatever, but I kind of feel like these should go to people who would appreciate them, fans, not be stuck in their case in a card thing just to be accruing value. I can't get behind that with these sorts of things. I want to give these to people who appreciate them. So like kids in a Boy Scout troop, I feel like would appreciate these sorts of things. And when I handed him the bag and he went through, he was like, oh, we have some really good cards. And he went, I have no idea. It was all sports stuff. He took them, and he told me later on he gave them to the kids and made their day, made a bunch of the parents' day, because a bunch of these cards were like 20 years ago or something else like that. So that was a good thing. And I kind of wanted to give stuff like that. And then after a bit, I found myself souring on Marvel DC comics in general, but Marvel comics especially. There's like so many events that happened where I'm just like, oh my God. Was it Brian Bendis was just doing craptacular work? There was a few other people who were just like failing left and right with comic arcs, Secret Invasion, Civil War, a few of the things with Spider-Man, One More Day. There were so many big arcs that happened that were nothing burgers or just like forced change that never felt right. And it was around this time too that like Marvel Comics, just to see if they could raise their prices. And back then, I think I was buying comics, and I was employed at this point, for like maybe $2 an issue, $1 something, $2 an issue. I think some of them were $2.25, and then they started ramping up to like $5 an issue for a bunch of these. And I looked into the reason for it, and they just wanted to see if the customer base would accept it. And most of them did, it seemed, because it kind of became normalized. But for me, it's like, I feel like a slap in the face and greedy. And then it's like I would go during payday. Thursday, I would go to Midtown Comics and deal with the snarky staff who weren't that happy to work there, and then buy a big stack of frickin' comics. And then it's like I couldn't buy that big stack of comics. They were killing themselves. All of a sudden, I could maybe buy a few, and then I really maybe just stop and realize I wasn't as happy with these stories. I wasn't as happy with what I was getting. So I was like, So I tried to kind of cutting back on comics. And then I went through a few more really bad arcs. I'm like, I'm done. And I think around this point, I had Jasmine move in. And I just like, I am really dying on space here. So what I did was I just so happened to bump into an old high school friend of mine at the comic shop. And this is a kid who used to make fun of me and call me like a dumb for like buying these comics, a nerd, and all these other, everything he could to make fun of me with. Well, lo and behold, one of the first things he says, Bernardo, you're so right. He was balls deep into Marvel fandom obsession. There was, I think recently they came out with an app for like where you could read all the comics, like a whole bunch of issues a day, and he was just like devouring it. And he and his husband, no, I don't think they were married at the time. He and his boyfriend, who was also a comics fan, were huge into them. And I was delighted. I was delighted to see that this like friend of mine actually got into my thing. And but at this point, I'm like, you know what, man, you should just walk away from comics and get into manga. And then he went to once again said that's stupid. He was just making fun of me for like manga is dumb, comics is amazing. I'm like, all right. And it was like, okay, man. And we started hanging out again. I'm like, I started thinking about, I got a waste of space. I got all this stuff taking up space. And I was actually going to save my comics for my kids. I was going to save all my stuff for like, I wanted to give them to my kids or some people who would appreciate them. The big thing was I wanted to read these with my kids and get them into it. But around this time, I started discovering collections. Now, they don't collect everything anymore, but you can get like good bound editions of a lot of things. And I feel like that's how I'm going to go if I can afford it and get the space for it. I'd rather buy these things in like bounded up sets and then read those with them, or at least have them that way so I can go back down memory lane instead of having to pull one out, deal with delicate paper and whatnot. So one day I'm like, hey Rob, or Bob really is what I call him. Hey Bob, how do you feel? How would you like my comic collection? His eyes lit up. I said, look, go back to when you go home tonight, ask your boyfriend if you want to you guys have space. And I showed him the boxes that I had full of comics, and I've been collecting these since like the mid 90s. So I had a lot of stuff to give. And next day he's like, my boyfriend loves you. So then the following day he made several trips and just took all my comics. One thing I held on to were my comic cards. And why? As much as I love the stories of the comics, something about the cards felt a lot more intimate to me. I was like, these are what I've held on to for so long, even more than the comics, because for some reason, my mom would get really high. Sometimes she'd get violent and like angry, and she'd like to tear up whatever I found precious. So a lot of my comics didn't survive my youth. What I did have for a bunch of my older things, she would just like are taped together back because she would just try to like hurt me by destroying my things. Thankfully, my comic card survived her like drugged up stuff moods because I had these in shelves or in other places, so they were safe. And I don't know, it's something about especially the Spider-Man set held all these precious stories from universe that I loved for the most part before it was sullied by the writers at Marvel. And so this meant a lot to me. So I had kept this. I kept, I think, some 1992 Marvel Universe card set that was like a few other like ones here and there. And I think a few comic books that I'm not even that attached to, but I had them in binders, so I just decided to keep them. So yeah, something about these I just wanted to keep. And this is something I would love to just sit down with my kids, open the binder, and then like flip through the pages. Maybe we'll find the comics and we'll like, read them together. But something about this holds a special place in my heart because it survived the shit show that was my childhood and then my adulthood. I remember at one point money was so tight I even thought about selling this stuff, but I didn't. Anyway, So a little while ago, there was actually a kitten next to me that started all this story out. Uh, I'm hearing something in my closet, and I'm like, I go look, and my kitten is chewing on this stack of things I had in a plastic bag. She's like, she's gnawing on it, she's teething, and I'm just like infuriated and angry. But you know, it's a baby, it's a kitten, you can't really get mad at it. So I grab it, boop it on the head with my finger real quick, like no, and I pull it out, and it's my old pack. It's my comic card. It's some of those old comics, a few things that I chose to save from all those years ago. And I opened this binder, and I'm like, huh. I think I spent like an hour just like perusing it, going through things, and I realized I'm missing 2 cards. But actually, I'm missing a card. I was always missing the 99th card out of the 99 card set. And that bothered me all of a sudden. I'm like, oh man. And then I'm like, around this time, it's like, there's such a thing as eBay. So I'm like, how much is this going to cost me? Because I know how soulless and evil the comics market is, the collectors, the flippers are. I'm expecting at least 20, 50 bucks for the card. So I go on, I'm looking. Thankfully, this is after I got into the War of the Hammer 40K stuff, because it was just like, I got comfortable with eBay. So I went on, and I was looking for the card. And I was like, how much is it going to cost? $1.52 with shipping. $1.52. I cannot imagine how much spare change I spent trying to get this collection, and I could complete it for $1.52. I was like freaking ecstatic. I ordered it, and I was about to order it. I'm like, oh man, how much is the whole set going for? Because the big idea was like read this with my kids, share it with them. But it'd be nice to have a spare, maybe to like give. I mean, ideally, I want to have like 8 kids. But if I have a few, I'd like to be able to give some out. So I'm like, how much does a set of Spider-Man stuff cost? It must be like $50, $100. Like, this heck cannot be cheap. So I looked it up. An entire set for the Spider-Man 1992. It says Spider-Man 2. I don't understand why, but trading card set. I was able to find on there for about $6 and something cents. So not only did I get the missing card, I also got an entire set of something that took me forever to get as a kid for about $7. It's just insane to me. It's just insane. You know what? I didn't plan this, but let's take a moment. And again, they don't know I'm doing this. I'm saying this on a lark. Let's call out the wonderful person who did not gouge me, as many people would have. I got this from the Card Father. I don't know if you could see this. Concord Aviation non-sport memorabilia, toys, diecast. Will make you an offer you can't refuse. John Ninivigi. That's a name. Anyway, the Card Father on eBay did right by me. So yeah. Anywho, once again, a couple weeks ago, I'm hearing something in the closet, and my newer kitten was attacking something, and lo and behold, it was the same damn thing. And I go and I look, and I don't know how I missed this, but I was missing another card. Maybe I pulled the last. I could have sworn I was just missing the one, but apparently I was missing a second card, and that immediately drove me crazy. So I went, I looked. It was number 46. I went on eBay and I got them for about $1 something. And now my collection is complete. And I went through and I triple checked the book. Maybe I forgot to order it last time. I'm surprised I didn't get it. But anyway, so I put this in there, and I got this a little while ago, and it just made me happy. And then I started looking into like more of these collections and stuff. And oh man, they have something called Marvel Masterpieces that came out back when. And it's amazing. It was weird because some of these were beautiful works of art. Some of these were like, but you know, it's subjective. And it's like, that set's going for a stupid amount of money. There's a few other Marvel Universe sets that I would like to collect and get them all, but I don't have the money, and I don't really need them. And then I'm at a certain point where I find myself really disliking Marvel and Disney. So even though I'm buying it secondhand, third hand, fifth hand on eBay, I'm kind of loath to buy anything else from them at this point because of all the stupidity they've been doing, the crap they've been churning out. And it's just like, in a way, it kind of like bothers me to even get my kids into that if I don't have kids. But like, you get what I'm saying. Like, it's weird to go from loving, absolutely loving this company, this universe that was created, to absolutely now actively avoiding it. Like, there's a Marvel miniatures game that has a lot, Crisis Protocol, I think, that has a lot of love and a big community behind it. But, and I remember seeing it on eBay, not eBay, on Amazon during the holiday sales for like $50 for the $100 starter set or something like that. And I just cannot bring myself to buying it, because I just find myself from loving the Marvel universe to just hating it and being like, oh, about it all. It's really weird as a fan, as a person, to have that go that 180. I don't know. So anyway, I completed my collection. I have 2 of them now. And I just discovered a couple days ago, before I filmed this, that there was a Wolverine 1992 collection of cards that tells, I guess, his story through the years. And that's another character like Spider-Man that I really liked, that has a very complex history that's now been also, like, you know, screwed over by Marvel left, right, and center. But it's like, part of me wanted to like pull the trigger and get that card set, because as much as I know of the history, there's still a lot I don't know. And I was looking through the eBay thing of the cards. I had no idea who most of the characters were, because it's a big history. I was never able to read everything, so it's like, but I'm broke. And then, you know, even another binder like this is hard to fit in my apartment, hard to justify space-wise. And then they were also charging for, like, I think $30, which, if you think about it, isn't that bad considering you're getting an entire collection. But on the other hand, it's like, oh, I don't know. I just didn't pull the trigger. And I saw a few other really cool collections, and like, I don't know, I didn't want to pull the trigger on anything like that. But I don't know. What about you guys? Like, what have you held on to? Do you have any things from like your childhood, or like your time now, where you're like, I'm gonna hold on to this, I plan on it, I want to share this with my loved ones, I want to give this to someone who appreciates it, I'm just gonna hold on. It just reminds me of a special time in your life, or just something that brought you joy when you needed it. I mean, it's weird because, like, this card collection came from a really messed up time of my childhood, but at the same time, this card collections would kind of help me through that time. There'd be so many times where I'm like, when my family was just like being weird, I would just like retreat to a book, or grab my stuff, go on the fire escape, climb onto the roof, or go someplace and just read and reread the Chronicles of Narnia, or like my Marvel comic collection or something, or some other book or something that I can just like escape. It's weird to have something so precious as a whole tied to something so bad, but I guess this is how it is. Yeah, and I don't know. Part of me wants to just get that Wolverine set, but I can't afford it right now. And it's also just like, I don't know. I'm just overthinking things. But I'm curious. I just wanted to kind of share that, because it's interesting doing what I do here and share with you, where I'm just a grown-ass man who's playing with toys, either by myself or with my girlfriend, and sharing them on the internet for you to check out. And I have people who are like, yeah, that's awesome, who enjoy these things. Also, thank you for watching. But I feel like you all might have similar things. Obviously not as crazy as mine, but I don't know, did any of your parents rob apartments and bring you back comic books or Warhammer minis or something like that? Let me know. I mean, actually, this is one of my things where I'm opening the floor to you to see what you still holding on to. What do you plan on holding on to? Are you one of those people who are flip and sell things? Are you the person who's hearing the story like, I can't believe someone sold that for $6. I'd have sold that for $80. Are you one of those scumbags? I don't know. I'm curious. I'm super curious. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to share a little bit of this, because why not? All right, so here, let's go through it a bit. Amazing Fantasy #1, first Spider-Man. His parents, the bite, swinging around, the web shooters, all these classic memories. Chameleon. When he met the Fantastic Four. Sandman, Dr. Octopus, Pimpin' Spidey, Dr. Da-doom. Electro, the Lizard, Mysterio, Green Goblin, MJ, Craven. Not excited for that movie. X-Men. I wonder what would have happened if Marvel actually put those properties together for a while. Like a long while. Still haven't watched Morbius. Punisher. Black Cat. I don't think they're ever going to do her justice in the cinematic universes. The black suit. Actually, wait a minute. Symbiote. Venom. This was such an awesome thing when I saw this as a kid. Here Lies Spider-Man. Oh my god, when I saw that, oh, I was so freaking out. Like, that is one of the coolest things I saw. The new Fantastic Four, the Todd McFarlane cover, Craven, Spider-Man 299, oh my god. And then that's it. Anyway, that's it. I hope you're great. We'll go back to regular videos later on, but that's it. Have a great night. Bye.